Hello everyone. Let us begin with the new topic, that is drug induced toxicity. Under this we shall cover genotoxicity and mutagenicity in today's lecture. Now let us see what exactly these two terms mean. Okay. Now genotoxicity, as the name implies, that is some toxicity which is caused to the genetic material. Okay, that is the DNA basically, which carries the genetic information. Okay, so genotoxicity, it is the property of some chemical agent, so maybe the drug can also induce genotoxicity. So it is the property of the drug that can damage the genetic information within a particular cell, which may even result in mutations. Okay, so here basically the damage is caused to the genetic material, which may result into, or which may be caused by the mutations, and these mutations ultimately sometimes may also result into cancers. Okay, so mutagenicity may also be responsible for the carcinogenicity. Okay, so all these terms are interrelated to each other. Okay, so genotoxicity may be caused due to mutagenicity. It is one of the mechanism of genotoxicity. Okay, so it may result in the toxicity to the genetic material, and ultimately it may even result in the cancers. Okay, whereas mutagenicity, it refers to the ability of the drug to induce the mutations in the genes. Okay, that is, perturbation in the sequences may take place. Okay, so we will see in detail how exactly these toxicity to the genetic material is taking place. Now in most of the cases people get confused between these two terms. Okay, sometimes these are used interchangeably, but that is not true. Actually these two terms are totally different, though they are related to each other. Okay, now if you consider mutagenicity, all of the mutagenicity, okay, it may result in genotoxicity. Okay, that is, all the mutagens. Mutagen is a substance which can induce the mutagenicity. So all of them are genotoxic in nature. That is, they will result in some alterations in the genetic material, whereas all the genotoxic substances are not mutagenic. Okay, that is, genotoxicity may or may not result in mutagenicity. There may be mutagenicity is involved because it is one of the mechanism, but always it is not necessary that a genotoxic substance will result in mutations, whereas all the mutagenic substances will result in genotoxicity. Okay, so that is a difference between the two. Okay, now ultimately what will happen, whether it is genotoxicity or mutagenicity, there will be alterations in the genetic material. So it may either directly or indirectly affect the DNA. Okay, so either the mutations will be induced, or there may be some activation of certain events which is not supposed to take place. So mistimed event activation may take place. Okay, at wrong time some events or some processes may get activated in the body, or some direct DNA damage may lead to the mutations. Okay, now these type of damage, okay, thus permanent or heritable changes, it may either directly affect the somatic cell of that particular organism, or it may affect the germ cells. Now these are the two types of cells which is found in a particular organism. Okay, so either the somatic cells will be affected, or it may affect the germ cells. So as a result of this, it may be passed on to the next generation, progeny. Okay, so it may be passed on to the offsprings. Such type of alterations in the genetic material which takes place, it may be passed on to the next generation. So let us see how exactly these particular events may take place. So this is just a representation. A particular substance if it is genotoxic in nature, it may result in mutagenic events. So this may affect the somatic cell or the germ cell. So somatic cell is any type of cell which is found in the body other than the, excluding the germ cell, that is cells which may generate the gametes. Okay, so all the cells are known as somatic cells, whereas germ cells are those cells which give rise to the gametes. Okay, the sperm or the ovum. Okay, such type of cells are known as germ cells, whereas all the other types of cells are known as somatic cells. Okay, now these genotoxic compounds, it may result in certain mutagenic events, and it may directly affect these two types of cells which are found in the organisms. Now when it affects the somatic cell, let us see what happens exactly. What could be the consequences? Either this mutagenic event may result in the cell death, that particular cell which is affected, it may die, or some recessive or dominant changes in that particular cell may take place. Now recessive meaning some hidden changes are there which may not be seen, okay, or which may not be expressed, whereas dominant changes are those which are reflected, okay, in the form of certain consequences. Some functionalities may be affected. So ultimately these changes may occur in such a way that it may result in promotion. It is one of the process involved in the carcinogenicity. So this particular sequence may even result in cancer, or mutagenic events may directly affect the somatic cell in such a way that it may turn out into a cancerous cell. Okay, so these are the effects on the somatic cell. Now let us see what happens to the germ cell. Now germ cell, either this particular genotoxic compound may result or it may be a dominant lethal one, so that the fetal death may take place. Okay, germ cells are those which gives rise to the gametes, as I told you, right? Okay, so it may result in the fetal death, or it may be dominant viable. Okay, that is that particular whatever changes which has taken place or whichever alterations have taken place, these may be transmissible to the progeny, that is to the offsprings which are formed. Okay, because these are gametes, right? Germ cells give rise to the gametes, so fusion of which may result in the fertilization, and it may result in the implantation. Zygote is formed, and then the fetus grows in the mother's womb, right? So when these particular changes are dominant and viable one, it may be transmitted. That's a particular genetic alterations which has taken place. It may be transmitted to the progeny, that is to the offspring, next generation. That particular alteration may be transmitted, and sometimes these alterations are in such a way that these remain recessive, that is they remain suppressed or hidden, but there are some alterations which are transmitted to the progeny. So these are some of the consequences which may take place as a result of the effect of certain genotoxic compound or mutagenicity. Okay, now before going into the actual mechanisms of toxicity, how exactly genotoxicity or mutagenicity takes place, let us brief about the structure and the functions of the DNA, that is the main genetic material of the body. Okay, so you all must be already aware of this, so it will just a revision of the genetic information or genetic material. So these are some of the properties of the DNA. Okay, so DNA basically it consists of two different purines and two different pyrimidines. It's actually a double helical structure it has, right? And basically there are pairs of these bases which are formed between these purines and pyrimidines. So two types of purines, that is guanine and adenine, and two pyrimidines, that is thymine and cytosine, are present in the DNA molecule. Okay, now basically these nucleotides, they form the pairs, and they consist of one purine and one pyrimidine. Okay, that is adenine. It always forms a pair with a pyrimidine. Adenine is a purine. It forms a pair with the pyrimidine. So always adenine will form a pair with thymine. So A will pair with T, and guanine, which is a purine, it will form a pair with cytosine, which is a pyrimidine. Okay, so G will form a pair with C. So always a particular DNA structure which is a double helical structure. So on these two strands, it has two strands which are present in the form of coil like structure it is present, and there is a nucleotide pairs. Okay, on one, A will be present on one strand and T will be present on the second strand. When we'll see the structure, it will be more clearer. Okay, so these are the pairs, the base pairs which are present in the DNA molecule. Now these nucleotide pairs, these are connected to the double helix molecule by certain types of linkages and bonding. Okay, that is, sugar phosphate linkages are present and hydrogen bonds are present in between these. Okay, now while this adenine, it forms a pair with the thymine molecule, there are two hydrogen bonds which form this linkage of A with T, whereas in case of guanine and cytosine, there are three hydrogen bonds in between these two bases. Okay, that is G with C. There are three hydrogen bonds, and when A pairs with T, there are two hydrogen bonds, and the distance between each base pair, it is round about 3.4 angstrom. So in one particular coil of that DNA helix, okay, per turn there are 10 nucleotide pairs. Then one more property of this particular DNA, always if you consider the structure of a DNA, the number of adenine molecules will be always equal to the thymine molecule, because always adenine will form a pair with thymine, right? Purine will form a pair with the pyrimidine, right? So always the number of adenine molecules will be equal to that of number of thymine molecules, and same way the guanine forms the pair with the cytosine, right? So always the number of guanine molecules will be equal to the number of cytosine molecule, whereas this ratio, okay, this pair A with T to G with C, this may be variable, okay, but the number of molecules, adenine molecules, will always be equal to thymine, and the number of guanine molecules will always be equal to number of cytosine molecules. So that's a basic property of the DNA. Okay, then one more important property is there are two strands in a DNA molecule, right? So it is a double helical molecule, and these two strands are complementary and anti-parallel to each other. They are complementary. Okay, so A forms the pair with T. So always wherever there is A on the opposite side, on the opposite strand, there will be T. If there is T on one strand, on the opposite strand there will be A, and so on. Okay, then DNA replication, when it takes place, so DNA, it may replicate, so more number of DNA copies may be formed from a single DNA. So when it replicates in a semi-conservative method. Okay, so each strand will act as a template, and on that the new DNA strands will be formed, and again coiling will take place. So the replication which takes place, it is a semi-conservative. So half of the strand will be preserved in the new DNAs which are formed. Now coming to the protein synthesis. Now DNA, it carries the genetic material or genetic information. Apart from that, one more important function is the protein synthesis. Okay, so when a DNA, okay, a DNA, it has a double helical structure, right? So there are two strands, as I've told you earlier. So this is the first strand and this is the second strand. Okay, so both of these contain these base pairs, that is purines and pyrimidines. So if A is present over here on this particular strand, T will be present. Okay, so these lines, the horizontal lines, they indicate the base pairs. Okay, so this, when the protein synthesis takes place from the DNA, first of all uncoiling will take place. That is, these two strands will separate. okay, to give rise to a single stranded DNA. Okay, so uncoiling will take place. It's a coiled structure, right? It's a double helical coiled structure. There are two strands joined together, okay, by hydrogen bonding and all. So they will separate, and each particular strand of this DNA, it will act as a template to it will serve as a template to synthesize the RNA from it. Okay, so this particular process of formation of RNA from the DNA, it is known as transcription. So this particular one strand of DNA, if you can see the sequence A, G, T, C, A. So these are the bases which are present, the nucleotides which are present on a single strand. So if you can see over here, this is the sequence which is shown over here, A, G, T, C and A. So this particular bases, they will code for certain bases on the mRNA. Okay, now when an RNA is formed from the DNA, A, as we have seen that in the pairing, A pairs with T and G pairs with C. But now over here, if you can see, A will code for U. Okay, because in case of RNA, thymine is absent. Instead of thymine, there is uracil. Okay, so A will code for U instead of T. G, it will code for C, obviously. Okay, and T, it will code for A. Adenine is present over here. Only thymine is absent. Okay, so T will code for A, but A will not code for T. Okay, because thymine is absent in the RNA. Okay, so from DNA, mRNA is produced, that is messenger RNA is synthesized with the help of RNA polymerase is the enzyme which is required over here. So depending upon the bases which are present on the DNA sequence, it will code for certain bases and an mRNA is synthesized, which is complementary to the strand of the DNA. Okay, so this is how the process of transcription will take place, that is a messenger RNA. So this will carry some signal which is coded by the DNA. So whatever genetic information is carried by your DNA, that has been coded in the form of messenger RNA. Okay, now these particular sequence of mRNA, it codes for certain genetic information. From this mRNA, amino acids are they are coded for a specific type of amino acids, this particular sequence. Okay, so in this particular mRNA, 3 nucleotides, they form a particular structure, a triplet. It is known as a codon. So this particular codon, it will code for a particular type of amino acid. Say for example UCA, it will code for a certain amino acid, or AGU, it will code for a particular type of amino acid. So this is quoted over here in this particular table. So it depends upon what is that nucleotide present in the first position in that triplet, which is the base or the nucleotide which is present in the second position, and which is the base which is present in the third position in that triplet or in that particular codon. Okay, so in the first position, if there is A, in the second position if there is U, and if in the third position there is G, okay, that is A, U and G, so it will code for amino acid methionine. Okay, A, U, and depending upon which is the base at the third position, so there is a different amino acid which is coded for. So AUG, it will code for methionine. Now one more important point to be noted over here is AUG is also an initiation codon which will start the protein synthesis. Okay, then let us take one more example. Supposing at first position if there is G, second position if there is A, and if third position there is C, then it will code for G, A and C. Okay, so it will code for aspartate. Okay. Similarly, if there is U, A and say A. Okay, so U, A and A, it will code for stop. Now these three codons, these code for a stop. These are known as stop codon. That is, they will stop the protein synthesis, or they will halt the protein synthesis. So it will come to an end. Okay, so these particular UAA or UAG or UG and A, these indicate stop codon, and AUG indicates the initiation codon, or it will also code for the methionine. Okay, so likewise this particular sequence of these three nucleotides, it will determine which type of amino acid is brought in the sequence. Okay, so next step, that is that mRNA, it brings some signal. So depending upon the sequence of the nucleotides which is present, it will code for a particular type of amino acid, and that particular amino acid is brought by the tRNA, transfer RNA, on the ribosome. This is a ribosome, onto which this mRNA, it is read. That particular sequence is read in the form of 3 nucleotides. So 3 nucleotides will form one codon, and on the transfer RNA there is an anticodon which will identify this codon, and a specific sequence will bring in a particular type of amino acid. Okay, so likewise each amino acid will be added in this particular sequence, and protein synthesis will take place, and once it is coded for the stop codon, then it will result in the halt of the protein synthesis. So coming to the functions of this DNA, as we have seen, so it will first function and very important function is it will carry the genetic information from one generation to the next generation. So by DNA replication, it will carry that genetic information further. Okay, the second important function is the protein synthesis, as we have discussed earlier. So DNA molecule, it is double stranded, so uncoiling will take place, transcription will take place, that is a complementary RNA will be formed from one particular DNA template which will act as a template. Okay, and from this mRNA, it will, this particular information in the mRNA, it will code for a specific type of amino acids in that particular protein. So that particular sequence will be read in the form of a codon. 3 nucleotide bases, they will form one codon. So they will specify a particular type of amino acids. Okay, so any kind of alterations in these bases, in the sequence of these bases, obviously there will be alterations in the sequence or the type of proteins which are synthesized. Now let us see what are the mechanisms of toxicity to the DNA. Now these mutagenic events, these may be divided into 2 types, that is macro lesions or micro lesions. Okay, macro lesions because they can be observed under the microscope. Now these macro lesions are of 2 types, that is alteration in the chromosome numbers. The number of chromosomes may be altered, or there may be alteration in the structure of the chromosome. There may be breaks in the chromosomes or deletions or rearrangement in the chromosome structure. So obviously the genetic information will be altered in this way. The second type of lesions which are formed are micro lesions, that is point mutations may take place. Now these point mutations again are of 2 types, frame shift mutation and base pair change. Okay, so these are the 2 types of changes which may take place. Now these particular changes which may take place in the DNA sequence, these may be produced by 3 basic processes. Okay, there are 3 basic mechanisms by which alterations in the DNA sequence may take place. First one is the infidelity in the DNA replication. Second one is the point mutation. Third one is the chromosomal aberrations. Now let us see one by one what are these 3 types of mechanisms and how exactly they are altering the genetic material. The first one, that is infidelity. Infidelity or inexact copying of a DNA strand. Okay, in the process of transcription, we have seen that the DNA strand, it is copied, right? A complementary mRNA is formed. So if there is some alterations in reading that sequence, okay, or copying that DNA. If a wrong mRNA is produced, obviously the proteins which are produced, that will also be altered, right? So there may be some deleterious consequences which may take place. So let us see what and how exactly this inexact copying of the DNA strand may take place. Firstly, inaccurate initiation of replication. Okay, there may be problem with the initiation of the replication, or there may be failure of the transcription enzymes to accurately read the DNA. Okay, the enzymes which are involved in the transcription process, they may not be able to read the DNA appropriately, or there may be interruption of the transcription processes by agents which may be intercalated in between the DNA molecules. So there may be certain substances which may themselves get inculcated within that DNA sequence. So obviously the DNA sequence will be altered, or they may be interspersed in between the DNA and the reading enzyme. So again there will be alterations in the DNA replication. So that DNA sequence will not be appropriately copied if there is alterations in these processes, or if there is some alteration in the sequence. Now second mechanism which is involved is point mutations. Okay, now point mutations can be of two types: base pair changes or frame shift mutations. Okay, now as we have seen that a particular codon, okay, it will code for a particular type of amino acid, right? Now this codon will depend upon the RNA which is replicated from the DNA. So supposing if there is change in the DNA sequence, obviously there will be change in the mRNA, and if there is a change in the mRNA, obviously there will be change in the sequence of the amino acid which is coded for. Okay, so now coming to the first type of point mutation, that is base pair change. Now base pair change, it may result from either transition or transversion. That is, a particular DNA base pairs are altered. Okay, number of base pairs will remain the same, but one base pair may be replaced with another base pair. Okay, so that the sequence is altered, the number of bases are not altered. Okay, so what will happen if there is changes in the base pair? Obviously the genetic code is degenerated. Okay, so it may or may not alter the product. Okay, so if the same we have seen that a number of codon may code for one particular type of amino acids, right? In that particular table we have seen AUU will code for isoleucine. Similarly, AUC also codes for isoleucine. AU and A also codes for isoleucine, right? So if there is changes in the base pair in such a way that AUU is replaced with AUC, it will still code for isoleucine, right? So it may or may not result in changes in the information which is coded for by the particular DNA sequence. So if the alterations are such that they code for same amino acid, there won't be any difference, right, in the product which is generated. Okay, so either it may or it may not alter the product of transcription and translation. Either a wrong protein may be formed or may not be formed. Okay, sometimes due to this base pair changes. Okay, now coming to the first type of process under this base pair, that is transition. So there are two processes by which it takes place, right? Base pair changes. First one is the transition and the second one is the transversion. Now let us see what happens in the transition. In case of transition, one base is replaced by the base of the same chemical class. That is, a purine is replaced by another purine. There are two purines, right? Adenine and guanine. Okay, so adenine is replaced by guanine maybe, or a pyrimidine may be replaced by another pyrimidine. That is, cytosine may be replaced with thymine, or thymine may be replaced with the cytosine. So here same class, the base of the same class is getting replaced. Okay, so one of the example is quoted over here, that is nitrous acid. Nitrous acid, it may be formed from the precursors like nitroso nitrosamines or nitrites or nitrate salts. So here it may react with the amino groups in the nucleotide and convert them into the keto groups. Okay, so there may be changes in the bases which may take place. Okay, so one purine may be replaced by another, or one pyrimidine may be replaced with another pyrimidine. Now in case of second case, that is transversions, so here these replacements are such that one purine is replaced by a pyrimidine, or a pyrimidine may be replaced by a purine. Okay, so adenine may be replaced by, say, cytosine or thymine, or guanine may be replaced with cytosine or thymine, and vice versa. Okay, so pyrimidine is replaced by purine, or purine is replaced by a pyrimidine. So there are two types of processes which may result in the base pair change. Let us take an example of transversion. Okay, now if this is a DNA sequence, these are the base pairs in the DNA. Okay, so in case of DNA, it's a double helical structure and it is coiled in nature. It's not exactly the straight, but this is just a representation to show the base pairs. So in case of DNA, we have seen that A will pair with T, okay, G will pair with C. Okay, so obviously two strands are complementary to each other. So on one strand, if there is A, so on the second strand there will be T. Okay, if on one strand there will be T, second strand there will be A. So there will be pairing exactly. Now supposing if this is the strand of the DNA which is coding for the mRNA. Okay, so this three bases, or these three nucleotides, they will code for one particular codon, right? Say for example T, it will code for A on the mRNA. A will code for U, it will not code for T, because in case of mRNA, T is absent, thymine is absent and uracil is present, right? So A will code for U and G will code for C. Okay, so the first codon which is formed over here, okay, in case of mRNA sequence which is produced, so it will code for amino acid isoleucine. The sequence is meant for coding isoleucine. Whereas in case of further sequence, if you see this forms the second codon, right? A will code for U, G will code for C, and C will code for G on the mRNA. So the next sequence on the mRNA will be U, C and G. So this will code for serine. Okay, so this is a strand of mRNA which is formed from this template strand of the DNA. Okay, so as per this sequence, the particular types of amino acids will be coded. So first will be isoleucine, next amino acid which will be attached will be serine. Now supposing if there is replacement of this base pair, CG, if it gets replaced with AT, what will happen? There is a change in the sequence which is coded. These first three will remain same. T will code for A will code for U, G will code for C. First sequence or the first codon is AUC, it will code for isoleucine. But supposing if this CG, this base pair, is replaced with AT, what will happen? Instead of U, C and G, the new codon will be generated, right? So next sequence will be UAG. So what will happen? It will code for stop codon. We have seen under the sequence in the table that UAG, it codes for the stop. It is stop codon. Okay, so no amino acid is coded by this particular sequence. So protein synthesis will come to an halt over here. Okay, so there is some information which is produced over here. Okay, so this is not the correct sequence. So because of this change in the base pair, there is a new codon which is generated and it is coding for the stoppage of the or halt of the protein synthesis. So incomplete proteins sequence will be generated. Okay, so base pair change may result in alterations of the sequence of amino acids in the proteins. Okay, if there is change in this particular codon which may code for a different amino acid. Okay, then next type of the point mutation is the frame shift mutation. Okay, now this, in case of frame shift mutation, there may be either insertion or deletion of one or more bases. Okay, so far in the base pair change, what we have seen that a particular base pair is replaced by another base pair. But in case of frame shift mutation, there is either insertion or deletion of the base pairs. Okay, so as a result of addition or deletion of the base pairs, obviously the sequence of the DNA will change. So obviously it will code for wrong mRNA, and as a result of this, again the whatever amino acids are coded, obviously the codon sequence will change. Obviously the amino acids also will be wrong, which will be coded. So obviously it will result in a altered genetic product. So one example of an bacteriostatic agent is quoted over here, proflavin. So this particular substance, it is flat and planar in nature, so it gets intercalated in between the DNA molecule. So it inserts itself in between the bases in such a way that the DNA strands, it becomes abnormal in configuration. So the replicating enzymes or transcription enzymes which are reading this DNA sequence, they may not be able to read the DNA appropriately. Okay, so the particular sequence may be altered. So some of the base pairs may be skipped. Okay, or some additions may take place. So as a result of this, the particular the template DNA, if there is alteration in the structure, obviously the mRNA which is transcripted will also be a wrong one, and obviously the proteins, amino acids which are coded, they also will be wrong. So as a result of this, it will code for a wrong protein. Okay, so let us take an example over here. Supposing if this is a DNA sequence which codes for a particular codon. So first three, if this is a template DNA strand, as we have seen the pairs, A will form with T, T with A, G with C. So the first three in the sequence of the DNA strand, so they will code for one particular sequence, one particular codon in the mRNA. So say for example, T will code for A will code for U. In place of T, uracil is present in the mRNA, and C will code for G. So first codon on the mRNA which is formed is AUG. So that's an initiation codon. Second codon which will be formed is C. G will code for C, A will code for U, C will code for G. So second codon which is present on the mRNA is CUG. So it will code for leucine. The third codon which is formed on the mRNA is GUA. So it will code for valine. Okay, so this is the sequence of the amino acid which is normally coded for. Okay, now supposing this particular base pair CG is deleted, then what will happen? Obviously the sequence of this template DNA will change. So it was TAC. So after C it was originally G. Supposing if this base pair is deleted, what will happen? After C it will be A, then C, C. Now while transcription, it will code in a particular sequence, right? So if this base pair is missing, it will read the next three, right? So what will happen? This particular first three, they will code for AUG, which is an initiation codon. But what has happened further? This G, CG is removed. So in the template DNA, this G is missing. Instead, next base is ACC. So it will read in the form of 3, right? So next three bases which are coded are A will code for U, C will code for G, C will code for G. So obviously next sequence is a new one, right? So new codon is formed over here. Originally it was C, U and G. But now the sequence has changed because this middle pair has been removed. So it will code for tryptophan instead of leucine. Okay. Similarly, further codons also will be altered, right? Actually it should be GUA on the mRNA. Next codon should be GUA, which will code for valine, but it has changed now, UA and maybe further whatever, depending upon the further base pairs. Okay, so it will code for a new amino acid instead of valine. So likewise new amino acids will be coded, or totally new proteins may be synthesized. Okay, because new particular codons are coded for because of the deletion of a base pair. Now let us take another case. Okay, there may be additions also of the base pair, right? So if this is your normal template, obviously it will code for AUG, that's the first three codon. Okay, so first three base pair which forms the first codon, so it will code for an initiation of protein synthesis. Next will be CUG, it will code for leucine. Next will be GUA which will code for valine. Now supposing if there is addition of this particular base pair, now initially it was at the 6th position, there was GC, right? But what has happened over here, at the 6th position, now this particular base pair has been added, AT, before this GC. Okay, you can see that rest all is same, only this AT is added over here. Now what will happen when transcription takes place? T will code for A will code for U, C will code for G. So AUG, it's an initiation codon. Next, if you can see the next sequence which is coded for in the mRNA, after this AUG, next codon will be CUA. Normally it was CUG, but now due to addition of this AT base pair, it has become CUA, and CUA, it codes for leucine. Now as we have seen earlier that certain sequence of codon, more than one codons may code for same amino acid. Now here CUG, it is replaced by a new codon, right? CUA, there is a change in the sequence of mRNA, but still the amino acid which is coded is the same, leucine. Okay, but further if you can see, the third codon which was coded for was GUA, but here what has happened, it is GGU now. C will code for G, C will code for G, A will code for U. So the next codon, the sequence is changed. Now here also new codon is formed, but it doesn't make a difference because it is coding for same amino acid. But in case of third codon, which is altered in such a way that a new amino acid has been coded for. Here it was valine, but this particular codon is coding for glycine. So there is obviously alteration in the sequence. Obviously further whatever codons are coded for, and then accordingly there will be wrong amino acids which will be coded for, and a totally wrong protein may be synthesized. Okay, so these are the consequences of frame shift mutation. So there is totally shifting of the codons. Okay, now the third mechanism by which genotoxicity can take place is chromosomal aberrations. Now chromosomal aberrations, it may be presented in the form of chromatid gaps or breaks, or there may be symmetrical exchange, that is exchange of the corresponding segments between the two arms of the chromosomes, or there may be asymmetric interchange between the chromosomes. Okay, so chromatids, which are the pairs of the one of the half of the chromosome which is replicated. Okay, so that there may be breaks in that, or there may be the two arms of that chromosome, they may get interchanged. There may be symmetrical exchange, or there may be asymmetrical exchange in the arms of the chromosomes. Now point mutations, if you consider, there is just a minor change, but if total chromosome is altered, if there are breaks, or if there are alterations, or if there are totally changes in the arms, there will be major perturbation. Okay, maybe because of the mutations, point mutations, they will code for a wrong protein. But if there are changes in the chromosomes, chromosomes are the basic genetic material which is replicated, right, which is transmitted. So if there are aberrations or lesions in the chromosomes, or if the number of chromosomes are altered and if they pass in the germ cells, there will be disastrous consequences which may take place. There may be embryonic death which may result. There may be such serious, or it may be teratogenic in nature. It may result into teratogenesis. This is one of the mechanism of teratogenesis. Mutations may result in teratogenesis, or chromosomal aberrations may result in teratogenesis. That is, a baby may be affected, or there may be retarded development. The growth of the baby may get affected, or behavioral disorders may be produced, or infertility also may be produced, okay, due to the chromosomal aberrations. Now, because these lesions are observable under the microscopes, these are known as macro lesions. As we have seen that there are two types, right? Macro lesions and micro lesions. Okay, so all these point mutations and all, they come under the micro lesions, so it cannot be observed under the microscope. But these changes in the chromosomes, these can be observed under the microscope. So that's why these are known as macro lesions. Now these macro lesions, there are certain types of macro lesions which may take place. So one of the type of macro lesions is incomplete separation of the replicated chromosomes. So during the cell division, the chromosomes replicate, right, and then they separate from each other. So when they do not separate, or incomplete separations may result in the lesions in those particular chromosomes. So either there may be abnormal chromosome numbers in the resultant daughter cells. If the chromosomes which have replicated, if they do not separate from each other during the cell division, then the daughter cells which are formed, they will have abnormal number of chromosomes, right? We have seen under the macro lesions there are two types. Number of chromosomes may be altered, or there may be structural alterations of the chromosomes. So if there is incomplete separations of the replicated chromosomes, obviously the daughter cells will carry abnormal number of chromosomes. Okay, usually there is a haploid number of chromosomes, right? But there may be more number of sets of chromosomes which may be present, and these are known as ploidy changes. Or there may be gain or loss of single chromosome, and this particular phenomenon is known as aneuploidy. Then the second type of macro lesion which we have seen is the changes in the chromosome structure. Okay, so if there is damage to the chromosome structure, these are known as clastrogenic effects. So these will be characterized by abnormal structure of the chromosome. The morphology of the chromosomes may be affected. Now there are two theories which have been put forth, okay, to explain this chromosomal aberration. So what are the mechanisms of chromosome aberrations? These are explained by these two theories. First one is the breakage first hypothesis, and the second one is the chromatid exchange hypothesis. Okay, so lesions which are produced, these may be of two types. Accordingly, there are two theories which have been put forth. The first one is the breakage first hypothesis. So this theory assumes that the initial lesion or the damage to the chromosome which has taken place, it involves a break in the chromosomal backbone. Okay, so it will indicate that there is a broken DNA strand or incomplete DNA strand which is passed on. Okay, so there are certain consequences which may take place. Okay, once this particular chromosome is broken, if there is a break in the chromosome due to the lesions, there are certain consequences which may take place. So either these ends may repair normally and rejoin to form a normal chromosome, or the ends may not be repaired. So as a result of this, there may be a permanent break in the chromosomes, or they may be misrepaired. That is, one particular strand of the chromosome which is broken, it may go and join to another chromosome. So obviously there will be a translocation of the genetic material. There will be a wrong genetic material which is entered the particular chromosome. Okay, so obviously there will be alterations in this particular sequence which are formed later on. Second theory is the chromatid exchange hypothesis. So here there is an exchange of the chromatids which may take place, okay, from the another chromosome. Now chromatid is one of the half of the replicated chromosome, right? When a cell divides, chromosome replicate, and one of the replica of that chromosome is known as a chromatid. So during a cell division, they will separate from each other during the cell division. Now here what happens in this particular hypothesis, if it believes that there may be an exchange of the chromatids, okay, so as a result of this, what will happen, exchange figure chromatid chromosome will be produced if the strands are exchanged. Okay, so here it does not believe that there is a break in the chromosome, but here what happens is there is an exchange in the strands of the chromosomes, okay, in the form of chromatids. Okay, so this particular process of lesion which is formed, it is known as exchange initiation. Okay, so mostly these chromosomal abnormalities, these may result in cell lethality, that is, the cell may die, or if it is induced in the germ cells and if it is a dominant lethal one, okay, the cells death may take place, or it may not be even transmitted into the next generation. Okay, such type of lesions which are produced. Now how you can observe this, or how you can determine whether chromosomal aberrations has taken place, these are observable under the microscopes, right? So direct visual analysis of chromosomes are done, okay, of the frozen cells at the metaphase level during the cell division. Okay. That particular phase is observed for this particular kind of aberrations in the chromosomes, if at all they have taken place. Okay, so this particular metaphase spread analysis, it evaluates both the structural as well as numerical chromosome anomalies directly. So you can observe directly if there is any structural alterations which has taken place, or if there is any alterations in the number of chromosomes which has taken place. Okay, so these are the two types of lesions which may take place in the chromosomal aberrations. Okay, so these are all the mechanisms of genotoxicity and the mutagenicity. Thank you.